Excuse me, ma'am. I need to withdraw money for my school trip. A 12-year-old black girl stands at the counter of Sterling Trust Bank. Amara Johnson. Hair in two simple braids held together with rubber bands, not the decorative clips other girls wear. Her backpack is patched with duct tape. Her shoes, once white sneakers, are now gray with age, soles separating from the fabric, held together with super glue that's visible in the harsh bank lighting. Behind the marble counter, Victoria Ashford pauses mid-sip of her Starbucks latte. Senior branch manager, 20 years in banking, perfectly pressed designer suit, nails done weekly. She looks at Amara the way you'd look at a stray dog that wandered into a five-star restaurant. A school trip? Victoria's laugh is sharp, cutting. Sweetheart, this is Sterling Trust Bank, not a charity office. Does your mother know you're here wasting our time? The other customers look up. A man in a business suit smirks. A woman in yoga pants whispers to her friend. But none of them, not a single person in that pristine lobby, could have imagined what would happen in the next 45 minutes. Within the hour, Victoria Ashford would be the one begging. Not for money, for her career. Amara didn't flinch. She'd promised Grandma Josephine, Mama Joe, that she'd be brave. She stood straighter, even though her worn-out sneakers felt heavier with every passing second. I have an account here, Amara said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. My grandmother opened it for me. She passed away 2 months ago, and I need to access it. Victoria set down her latte with exaggerated slowness, exchanging glances with Marcus Chen, the assistant manager passing by. Did you hear that, Marcus? She has an account. Here, at Sterling Trust. Marcus stopped, looked Amara up and down, the rubber band hair ties, the patched backpack, the shoes that looked like they'd survived a war. What's your parents' account number? It's not my parents' account, it's mine. My grandmother left it for me. Sure she did. Victoria's voice dripped with condescension. Let me guess. Your grandmother also left you a mansion and a Ferrari. Laughter rippled through the lobby. A wealthy woman near the window, Linda Hartwell, didn't even try to hide her amusement. She was there with her daughter Chelsea, who was also 12, also going on the Washington, D.C. trip. Chelsea's shoes were brand new Nikes. Her backpack screamed Pottery Barn Teen. Mom, isn't she in my class? Chelsea whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Don't stare, honey, Linda said, though she was staring too. Amara pulled out a brown envelope from her backpack. Her hands trembled as she placed it on the marble counter. Everything's in here. The account documents, the bank card, my grandmother's letter. Victoria snatched the envelope, dumped its contents on the counter like she was handling garbage. Papers scattered. The letter fluttered. And then the bank card slid out. Obsidian black, matte finish. Gold lettering. Sterling Trust, Platinum Elite. The kind of card issued only to accounts with minimum balances of $250,000. For 1 second, just one, Victoria's smirk faltered. Her eyes widened. Something flickered across her face. Confusion, maybe even doubt. But prejudice is a powerful drug. It overrides evidence. It blinds you to what's right in front of your eyes. Victoria shook off her doubt, picked up the card between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. Where did you steal this? The question hit Amara like a slap. I didn't steal anything. It's mine. My grandmother, your grandmother. Victoria turned to the lobby, playing to her audience. The janitor who supposedly saved $250,000. Do you people actually think we're stupid? More laughter. The customers were loving this. Entertainment with their banking. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice, but not enough. Should I call the police, Victoria? Not yet. Let's see what kind of con she's running first. Victoria held up the Platinum Elite card, showing it to the lobby like evidence in a trial. A black girl from the projects with a card like this. You really expect me to believe that? Amara's throat tightened. She felt the tears coming and fought them back. Mama Joe's voice echoed in her head. "Baby girl, tears are prayers. Don't be ashamed of them." "My grandmother worked 3 jobs for 35 years, Amara managed to say. She was a custodian. She saved everything for me. She promised—" "Spare me the sob story." Victoria's words were ice. "Every scam artist has a dead grandmother and a tragic tale. I've heard them all." She turned to the security guard standing near the entrance. James Patterson. Black man, late 50s, gray creeping into his short hair. 23 years at this bank. 3 years from retirement. Full pension waiting. "Security," Victoria called out. "Sit her down over there while I call the fraud department. Don't let her leave." James moved forward, each step heavier than the last. He'd watched this scene play out before. Different faces, same cruelty. Immigrants denied service. Elderly people talked down to. Poor families treated like criminals. He'd never spoken up. Not once in 23 years. He pointed to the corner seats, near the bathrooms, near the janitor's closet, the worst seats in the building. Amara walked there alone. Each step felt like a mile. She sat on the cold plastic chair, surrounded by marble and brass and wealth that seemed to mock her very existence. She pulled out Mama Joe's letter. The paper was soft from being read so many times. The edges were fraying just like her nerves. "My beautiful Amara, the world will judge you by your appearance. They'll see your shoes before they see your soul. But you are not your shoes. You are my legacy. You are love made visible. Hold your head high, baby girl, always." Amara read those words 3 times, trying to believe them. Her phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Keisha. "Still in patient meeting. 30 more minutes. You doing okay, baby?" Amara typed back with shaking fingers. "I'm fine." She didn't mention the tears, or the way Victoria and Marcus were laughing together near the water cooler, both of them glancing at her corner, or the way every customer who entered the bank looked at her with suspicion. She was invisible, except when she was too visible. 20 minutes passed, then 25, then 30. Amara watched Victoria help a white family open a brand new account. They'd arrived 20 minutes after Amara. They were served immediately. Smiles, handshakes, complimentary coffee. She watched Marcus process a large withdrawal for a man in a golf polo. Quick, efficient, respectful. She watched Linda Hartwell and Chelsea make a deposit. Chelsea kept looking over at Amara, whispering to her mother, both of them glancing at the girl in the corner like she was an exhibit at a zoo. James Patterson stood at his post. His eyes kept drifting to Amara's corner. His chest felt tight. His hands wouldn't stop clenching. 23 years ago, James had been that kid. Different bank, different city, same humiliation. A white manager had refused to cash his paycheck. "Need extra verification for people like you." A security guard had followed him around stores. "Just doing my job, sir." 1,000 small cuts over a lifetime, some not so small. And now James was the one in the uniform, the one following orders, the one enabling the cruelty. His younger self would be disgusted. He moved toward Amara's corner. Maybe he could just— "James!" Victoria's voice cut through the lobby like a whip. "There's a delivery at the back entrance. Handle it now." James hesitated. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked toward the back of the bank. The moment passed. Finally, after 32 minutes, Victoria called Amara over. Not to the main counter where real customers were served, to a small desk in the back corner. The kind used for problem customers. Amara sat in the hard plastic chair, placed Mama Joe's documents on the desk carefully. Victoria didn't touch them. Didn't even look at them. "Let's try this again." Victoria's voice was cold, clinical. You claim you have an account at this bank. You claim your grandmother left you money. But you have no proper ID, no guardian present, and frankly, you don't look like someone who belongs in an institution like this. Amara's voice came out small. I have my school ID, and my grandmother's letter, and the bank card with my name on it. Victoria picked up the school ID between two fingers like it might be contaminated. Lincoln Middle School, 7th grade. She tossed it back on the desk. It slid toward Amara, almost falling off the edge. This proves absolutely nothing. But the card, where are your parents? The question was a weapon. Amara felt the familiar pain. Her mother had died in childbirth, complications. She'd never known her father. Mama Jo had raised her from 2 days old. I live with my aunt. She's at work. She's a nurse. Of course she is. Victoria looked at Marcus, who joined them. And where is this aunt now? Why isn't she here vouching for your little story? She's in a patient meeting. She'll be here soon. A meeting? How convenient. Victoria leaned back in her expensive leather chair. Let me guess. She's also too busy to teach you not to commit fraud. Marcus whispered something to Victoria. They both looked at Amara. Both smirked. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria said, louder now, making sure other customers could hear. I'm freezing this account pending a full investigation. If you really are the account holder, which I highly doubt, you'll get access eventually. After we verify your grandmother didn't steal this money herself. Amara's eyes went wide. She didn't steal anything. She worked her whole life. Worked as a janitor. Victoria emphasized the word like it was shameful. You expect me to believe a custodian saved $250,000? Please. She stood up, straightened her designer suit, made sure everyone in the lobby was watching. Victoria raised her voice. The entire lobby fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. Her voice carried like a stage performance. This is what we deal with in banking today. People who think they can walk in here and take what doesn't belong to them. A businessman near the entrance shook his head in disgust. Chelsea whispered something to her mother. Linda nodded, her face twisted with contempt. I don't know where you got that card, Victoria continued, pointing at Amara like a prosecutor at trial. I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but you will not steal from this bank. Not on my watch. Amara's vision blurred with tears. She tried to stop them. Girls don't cry in public, but Mama Jo's voice answered back. Baby, tears are prayers. Let them fall. My grandmother worked 35 years, Amara managed, her voice breaking. She saved every penny for me. She promised, spare me. Victoria cut her off with a slash of her hand. Every con artist has a dead grandmother and a tragic tale. I've heard them all before. She turned to James, still standing near the entrance. Security. Escort this girl out of my bank. Now. James didn't move. His feet felt nailed to the marble floor. Did you hear me? Victoria's voice sharpened to a blade. I said now. James walked toward Amara slowly. Each step killed something inside him. 23 years of watching this happen. 23 years of silence. Today would be no different. He stopped in front of Amara, extended his hand. Miss, you need to leave. Amara stood on her own. She didn't need his help. She picked up Mama Jo's letter from the desk, pressed it against her chest like a shield. She walked toward the exit with as much dignity as a 12-year-old could carry. Victoria's voice followed her like a curse. Next time you want charity, try a soup kitchen. That's more your speed. Someone in the lobby laughed, a real laugh, loud and cruel. Amara reached the automatic doors. Her phone started ringing. The screen lit up, Aunt Keisha calling. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped it. The phone crashed onto the marble floor. Screen cracked. Battery popped out. James picked it up, handed it back to her. Their eyes met for one moment. In that moment, Amara saw shame. Deep, bone-crushing shame. James was drowning in it. But shame wasn't action. Words were needed. Courage was needed. James said nothing. Let her walk out alone. The doors closed behind her with a soft whoosh. Inside the bank, Victoria straightened her tie, smiled at Marcus. And that's how you handle it. Give these people an inch, they'll take everything. Marcus nodded, but his smile had faded. Something uncomfortable stirred in his stomach. Victoria's phone buzzed. Email notification. Subject line, urgent. Regional director visit. Today. She glanced at it, deleted it without reading. Too busy, too important. She should have read that email. She really should have. Outside, November wind cut through Amara's thin jacket. She sat on a concrete bench in the parking lot, drew her knees up to her chest, made herself as small as possible. The brown envelope with Mama Joe's documents sat beside her, the cracked phone in her lap, the letter clutched in her fist, getting more wrinkled by the minute. She looked down at her shoes, the ones Victoria had mocked, the ones everyone had laughed at. Mama Joe had bought them at Goodwill last spring. $3. Amara had been embarrassed at first. Other girls at school had designer sneakers. Shoes don't make the person, baby, Mama Joe had said, kneeling down to tie the laces for her. Character does. And you have more character in your little finger than most people have in their whole bodies. Mama Joe had worn her own shoes until they literally fell apart, fixed them with duct tape and glue until they couldn't be fixed anymore. Amara understood now why. Every dollar Mama Joe didn't spend on herself was a dollar she saved for Amara's future. Tears fell onto the cracked phone screen. Amara didn't bother wiping them away. She tried calling Aunt Keisha, straight to voicemail. She sent a text, typing through tears. Aunt Keisha, they kicked me out. They said Mama Joe stole the money. They called me a thief. Then she waited. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. No response. The meeting must still be going. Amara had no one to call, no one to help, no one coming to save her. A woman in a business suit walked by, saw the crying black girl on the bench, the one who'd just been thrown out of the bank. She'd watched the whole thing through the window. She kept walking. A jogger passed with his golden retriever. The dog wanted to stop, wanted to comfort. The man yanked the leash, hurried on. Cars pulled in and out of the parking lot. People entered the bank. People left the bank. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if she was okay. Amara was invisible, just like inside, just like always. She unfolded Mama Joe's letter one more time. The paper was damp now, spotted with tears. My beautiful Amara, the world will sometimes be cruel. People will judge you by your shoes, your clothes, the color of your skin. They will try to make you feel worthless. But you are not worthless. You are my greatest treasure. Everything I have saved, everything I have worked for, it's all yours now. Use it to fly high. Use it to prove them all wrong. And remember, dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride, baby girl. Always. All my love, forever and ever, Mama Joe. Mama Joe had promised her, sitting in that little kitchen, eating pancakes shaped like hearts. One day you'll walk into that bank, and they'll treat you like a queen, Amara. They'll call you ma'am and shake your hand and respect you. You'll see. Today, they had called her a beggar, a thief, a con artist. Today, they had thrown her out like garbage. Wherever Mama Joe was, she must be heartbroken. Inside the bank, silence ruled, the silence of complicity. James Davis stood at his post by the door. His eyes kept drifting to the parking lot, to the small figure on the bench. His chest felt tight. His hands wouldn't stop clenching. 11 years ago, no, 23 years ago, James had been that girl. Different circumstances, same humiliation. He'd been denied service, followed around stores, treated like a criminal just for existing while black. And now, he was the one in the uniform, the one enforcing the cruelty, the one who'd let it happen. He moved toward the door. Maybe he could go out there, sit with her, tell her it wasn't her fault. "James!" Victoria's voice sliced through his thoughts. "Stop daydreaming. I need you to check the vault logs from this morning." James hesitated. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked away from the door. The moment passed. Again. A woman near the entrance watched all of this unfold. Diane Mitchell. Mid-40s, designer purse, perfect makeup. She'd witnessed everything. The humiliation, the mockery, the way Victoria threw that child out. Diane had almost said something. The words had been right there in her throat. But she'd swallowed them, stayed silent, just like everyone else. Now she stood frozen, watching through the glass as the girl cried alone on that bench. Diane should go out there, should sit with her, should tell her it would be okay. But what right did she have? She'd stood right there in the lobby, watched a child be destroyed, and done nothing. What could she possibly say now? Outside, Amara was still alone, but not for much longer. A black Cadillac Escalade turned into the parking lot, sleek, silent, expensive. It stopped near the entrance. The driver's door opened, and everything was about to change. Dr. Keisha Johnson stepped out. Not in scrubs today. She'd left the hospital the moment she saw Amara's text, breaking every protocol to get here. Sharp blazer, professional slacks, the look of a woman on a mission. But she wasn't alone. The passenger door opened. Out stepped a man in an impeccable Navy suit. Presidential aura, badge clearly visible on his belt. Malcolm Winters, Federal Banking Inspector, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, also Keisha's husband, Amara's uncle by marriage. He spotted Amara immediately. His jaw tightened. A muscle twitched beneath his eye, the only visible sign of the fury building inside him. Keisha ran to the bench, knelt down beside her niece. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I got here as fast as I could." Amara looked up. Her face crumpled completely. She threw herself into her aunt's arms, sobbed against her shoulder. Keisha held her tight, didn't rush her, didn't ask questions yet. Just let the girl cry until the shaking stopped. Malcolm approached slowly, knelt down so he was at Amara's eye level. "Hey, sweetheart. I'm here now. Tell me exactly what happened." Through tears and hiccups, Amara told them everything. Every word, every insult, every laugh, every moment of humiliation. Malcolm listened in absolute silence. His face remained calm, controlled, but his eyes grew darker with each sentence, harder, colder, more dangerous. When Amara finished, Malcolm stood slowly. "You did nothing wrong," he said. His voice was firm as bedrock. "Nothing. Do you understand me? This is not your fault. None of it." He looked toward the bank entrance. "But they're wrong, and they're about to find out exactly how wrong." A second vehicle pulled into the parking lot. A government sedan. 2 more federal inspectors stepped out. Malcolm's audit team already on site conducting a routine compliance review of Sterling Trust's regional operations, and a third car, a silver BMW. Out stepped Catherine Rodriguez, Sterling Trust's regional vice president. She'd been driving to a different branch when Malcolm called her 3 minutes ago. She'd heard exactly 4 words. "We have a serious problem." Catherine approached Malcolm, her face already tight with concern. "Inspector Winters, what's the situation?" Malcolm's response was measured, professional, devastating. "Your branch manager just violated approximately a dozen federal banking regulations, not to mention basic human decency. We need to review your discrimination complaint protocols immediately." Catherine's face went white. "I don't understand." "You will." Malcolm took Amara's hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go back inside." Amara pulled back, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't want to go back in there. Please, Uncle Malcolm. Please." Malcolm knelt down again. "I know it's scary. I know it hurts. But sometimes we have to face the people who hurt us." He squeezed her hand gently. Not to fight them, not to yell at them, but to show them they couldn't break us. That we're still standing. That they have no power over us. Amara looked at the glass doors, at the marble lobby beyond, at the place where she'd been destroyed. She thought about Mama Jo. What would she want her to do? Dignity is not given. It is carried. "Okay," Amara whispered. "Okay." They walked toward the entrance together. Malcolm, Catherine, Dr. Keisha Johnson, the 2 federal inspectors, and Amara. Amara's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her legs felt weak, like they might give out. The last time she walked through these doors, she was thrown out like trash. Now she was walking back in with federal authority. The automatic doors slid open. The lobby fell absolutely silent. Every head turned. Victoria Ashford saw Catherine Rodriguez first. Her stomach dropped. Regional VP, unannounced visit. This was very, very bad. Then she saw the man beside Catherine, the badge on his belt, the federal credentials, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Then she saw the girl, the one she'd just thrown out, the beggar, the con artist, walking back in, holding hands with the federal inspector. Victoria's face went white as chalk. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Catherine's voice could have frozen water. "Ms. Ashford, conference room, now, everyone involved." "Ms. Rodriguez, I can explain." "Conference room, now." They moved to the private conference room. Glass walls. Everyone in the lobby could see inside but couldn't hear. Present, Victoria Ashford, Marcus Chen, James Patterson, Malcolm Winters, Catherine Rodriguez, Dr. Keisha Johnson, and Amara. Malcolm placed his credentials on the conference table. "Ms. Ashford, I'm Inspector Malcolm Winters, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. I've been conducting a routine compliance audit of this branch for the past 3 months." Victoria's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Confusion, recognition, dawning horror. "This is my niece, Amara Johnson," Malcolm continued. His voice was calm, deadly calm. "Would you like to explain why she was denied access to a legitimate account?" Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. I didn't know she was your—" "That's exactly the problem," Malcolm cut her off. "You didn't know who she was, so you assumed she was nobody. You saw a black girl in worn-out shoes and you made a judgment. Not about protocols, not about policies, about who deserves to be treated like a human being." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a tablet. "For the past 45 minutes, I've been reviewing your branch's security footage, with Ms. Rodriguez's authorization, of course." He turned the screen toward Victoria, pressed play. Her own voice echoed in the silent room. "Does your mother know you're here wasting our time? Where did you steal this? The janitor who supposedly saved $250,000? Spare me the sob story. Every con artist has a dead grandmother. Next time you want charity, try a soup kitchen. That's more your speed." Victoria watched herself. heard herself, saw what everyone in that lobby had seen. She looked like a monster. Marcus Chen, sitting beside her, had gone pale. He'd laughed along, enabled it, reinforced it. Federal banking regulations require equal treatment of all customers regardless of age, race, or apparent economic status, Malcolm continued. You violated those regulations. You also violated the most basic standard of human decency. He nodded to Catherine, who pulled up information on the conference room computer. Account number 847-2956-4032. The Amara Johnson Education Fund. The screen loaded slowly. Everyone held their breath. The number appeared. Account balance, $287,445. Nearly $300,000. 35 years of a custodian's salary. Every overtime shift. Every skipped meal. Every worn-out coat and duct-taped shoe. Every bus ride in the rain. All for Amara. Victoria stared at the number, her face drained of all color. Her hands started shaking. My mother-in-law worked 3 custodial jobs for 35 years, Malcolm said quietly. She rode the bus in the rain because she wouldn't waste money on a car. She ate ramen noodles for dinner so she could put aside $200 every single month, for 35 years. His voice didn't waver, didn't rise. Somehow that made it more terrifying than shouting. She wore the same winter coat for 2 decades. She fixed her shoes with duct tape when they fell apart because new shoes meant $50 less for Amara's future. She died 2 months ago, never having taken a real vacation, never having bought herself anything nice, never having lived in anything but a 1-bedroom apartment. He stepped closer to Victoria. She tried to shrink back in her chair. If my mother-in-law had walked into this bank today, you would have treated her exactly the same way, laughed at her, humiliated her, thrown her out, because she looked poor, because she looked like she didn't belong. Victoria opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She deserved better, Malcolm said. Amara deserves better. Every single person who walks through those doors deserves better. He turned to Catherine. What are Sterling Trust's policies on discrimination? Catherine's voice was tight, controlled. 0 tolerance. Immediate termination for any substantiated claim of discrimination based on race, age, or socioeconomic status. Then I suggest you substantiate this claim quickly. Malcolm's tone was ice. Because my audit report will include this incident in detail, along with a recommendation for a full federal investigation of this branch's lending and service practices, particularly as they relate to minority and low-income customers. The words landed like bombs. Federal investigation, career ending, institution destroying, Victoria's 20 years of work crumbling in 20 minutes. Catherine stood. Ms. Ashford, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials have been revoked. You can't, Victoria started. I can, and I am. Catherine's voice was steel. You violated company policy. You violated federal regulations. You humiliated a child in front of a lobby full of customers. You're done. Victoria looked at Malcolm, searching for mercy, finding none. If she wasn't your niece, Victoria began. You're right, Malcolm interrupted quietly. If she wasn't my niece, she would have walked out with nothing. Filed a complaint that would have been ignored. Maybe called a lawyer who would have told her it wasn't worth pursuing. That's exactly the problem, Ms. Ashford. She shouldn't need me to be treated like a human being. No one should. Victoria had no response. She stood on shaking legs, walked out of the conference room, through the lobby she'd ruled for 20 years for the last time. Every employee watched. Every customer watched. The woman who'd thrown out a crying child was now being thrown out herself. Marcus Chen was next. He sat in the same conference room, facing Catherine and Malcolm. You didn't initiate this, Catherine said. But you participated. You reinforced Ms. Ashford's behavior. You laughed along. You failed to intervene when a child was being abused. Marcus's voice cracked. I knew it was wrong. I didn't want to make trouble. I didn't want to be the one who... Silence is not neutral, Mr. Chen. Malcolm's words were quiet but devastating. Silence is a choice, and choices have consequences. Catherine outlined the disciplinary measures. Suspension without pay for 2 weeks. Mandatory bias training. Formal reprimand in his permanent file. 0 tolerance for any future incidents. Marcus nodded through the lecture, accepted everything. He'd learned something today. The lesson had cost him, but at least he still had a job. James Patterson was called in next, but this meeting was different. Malcolm spoke first. Mr. Patterson, you picked up Amara's phone when she dropped it. You handed it back to her. It wasn't enough, James said quietly. I should have done more. Should have said something. Yes, Malcolm agreed. You should have. But you knew it was wrong. That counts for something. James looked at his hands. I've been watching this happen for 23 years. Different faces, same cruelty. I never spoke up, not once. I told myself I had a family to feed, a pension to protect. You did, Malcolm said. You do. But here's the question. What will you do next time? James thought about his retirement. 3 years away. Then he thought about Amara, 12 years old, crying alone on a bench. Next time, I speak up, he said. His voice was firm. No matter what, I promise. Malcolm extended his hand. James shook it. It wasn't absolution. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a promise to himself, to Amara, to every person he might be able to help in the future. A promise he intended to keep. Diane Mitchell had been wading through all the meetings, all the drama, all the reckoning. She was still there when Amara and her family walked toward the exit. Wait! Her voice came out strangled. Please! They stopped. Diane approached slowly, her hands shaking. I'm so sorry. I was there. I saw everything. I should have said something. I should have defended you. But I stood there like a coward. Amara looked at her. This woman who had watched her humiliation in silence. She thought about Mama Jo. What would she say? Forgiveness isn't about them, baby. It's about setting yourself free. You came back, Amara said quietly. That matters. Diane's tears fell faster. I'm filing a formal complaint. As a witness. Everything I saw, everything they said, it goes on the record. Malcolm nodded. That takes courage. It takes less courage than your niece showed today, Diane said. She stood there and took everything they threw at her. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She endured with dignity. I don't know if I could have done that. Amara didn't know what to say, so she said the only thing that felt true. Thank you for coming back. Diane nodded, wiped her eyes, walked to the customer service desk to file her complaint. One small act of courage. Better late than never. The news spread through Sterling Trust like wildfire. By closing time, everyone knew. Victoria Ashford, 20-year veteran, senior branch manager, terminated for cause. The official reason, violation of company policies regarding customer service and professional conduct. The real reason spread through whispers and texts. She humiliated a black kid, called her a thief, threw her out. Turns out the kid's uncle is a federal banking inspector auditing the branch. By the next morning, it was regional news. By the following week, national. Not all the details, those were kept private to protect Amara. But the story got out. Bank manager fired for discriminating against a child. Federal inspector involved. Complete corporate accountability. People talked about it, argued about it, shared their own stories of banking discrimination. It became a moment. Victoria Ashford's termination was finalized within 72 hours. No severance beyond legal minimums. No recommendation letter. 20 years of work gone in 20 minutes. She applied to other banks. Word had spread. No one would hire her. Last anyone heard, she was working as a teller at a check-cashing place in a strip mall, helping the same kinds of people she used to mock. Some called it karma. Others called it justice. Marcus Chen kept his job, barely. He completed every training module, showed up early, stayed late, never smirked at another customer again. 6 months later, he transferred to a different branch. Needed a fresh start. 6 months after that, he quit banking entirely. Went back to school, got a degree in social work. Now he spends his days helping families navigate systems designed to exclude them. The irony isn't lost on him. Neither is the lesson. 3 weeks after the incident, James Patterson faced his first test. A young Hispanic woman came into the bank, nervous, limited English, trying to open an account. A new teller, young, impatient, was getting frustrated. His sighs were getting louder, his eye rolls more obvious. James walked over. "Is there a problem here?" The teller started to explain. James cut him off. "This woman is a customer. She deserves patience and respect. Help her properly or I'll find someone who can." The teller's eyes went wide. He apologized, helped the woman with genuine care. James went back to his post. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking, but he had spoken up. For the first time in 23 years, he had spoken up, and it felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Patricia Edwards, Sterling Trust's compliance officer, didn't stop with Victoria. Within 3 months, she worked with Catherine Rodriguez to implement sweeping changes across the entire region. Mandatory bias training for every employee, every quarter, no exceptions. New customer service protocols. Every inquiry handled within 15 minutes, regardless of the customer's appearance. Mystery shoppers hired to test compliance. Real people sent in to see if the changes were actually being implemented. An anonymous reporting hotline for customers and staff alike. Zero tolerance for discrimination. Not as a slogan, as actual policy with actual consequences. A small plaque was mounted at every entrance. Every customer deserves respect. Every story deserves to be heard. Sterling Trust Bank. It wasn't revolutionary. It wouldn't fix centuries of systemic racism overnight. But it was a start. A real one. Catherine made one more change. A personal one. She called Malcolm directly, 3 weeks after the incident. "Inspector Winters, I want to do more than just discipline bad behavior. I want to honor your mother-in-law's legacy. What would that look like?" Malcolm thought about it. Talked to Keisha. Talked to Amara. Talked to his memories of Josephine Johnson. A week later, they announced it. The Josephine Johnson Memorial Scholarship, named after Amara's grandmother, funded by Sterling Trust Bank, administered by a community foundation. Every year, 5 full scholarships awarded. Full tuition. Books. Living expenses, for students from working-class families pursuing any career their hearts desired. Recipients didn't have to become teachers or custodians. They could be doctors, engineers, artists, anything. The only requirement? They had to come from families where every dollar counted, where sacrifice was a daily reality, where love was measured in worn-out shoes and patched backpacks. Josephine Johnson's legacy multiplied. The first recipients would be announced the following fall. The selection committee included community leaders, educators, financial advisors, and one very special advisor, Amara Johnson. 12 years old, already changing the world. When Malcolm told Amara about the scholarship, she was quiet for a long time. They were sitting in her room, the one she shared with her cousin in Aunt Keisha's small house. "They named it after Mama Joe?" "They did," Malcolm said gently. "So her dream keeps living?" "Yes." "So she keeps helping kids even though she's gone?" "Exactly." Amara looked at the framed photo on her dresser. Mama Jo in her custodian uniform, smiling despite the exhaustion in her eyes.
"She would have cried," Amara whispered. "Happy tears."
"Yeah, baby." Malcolm's voice was thick. "She would have." Amara walked to her closet, pulled out the worn-out sneakers, the ones Victoria had laughed at, the ones everyone had mocked. She placed them on her shelf next to Mama Jo's photo. She would never throw them away. Never. They were proof of something the people in that bank had failed to understand. Love isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in sacrifice, in choices, in worn-out shoes that bought a future. The story could have ended there. Sometimes justice is enough. Sometimes accountability is enough. But 3 weeks after the incident, something unexpected happened. A video surfaced online. Not from the bank's security cameras, those were sealed. From a customer's phone. Ryan Chen, a 28-year-old marketing professional. He'd been in the lobby that day filming discreetly. He'd thought it would make a funny post. Drama at the bank, easy engagement, quick views. But then he'd watched what happened after. Watched Malcolm arrive. Watched Victoria crumble. Watched justice unfold in real time. And he felt something unexpected. Shame. He had stood there filming, laughing, entertained by a child's humiliation. What kind of person did that make him? He deleted the original video, but guilt lingered. Festered, wouldn't let him sleep. 3 weeks later, he posted something different. His own face, his own confession. "I was at Sterling Trust Bank 3 weeks ago. I watched a bank manager humiliate a 12-year-old black girl for wearing old shoes. I watched her get thrown out for trying to access her own account." His voice cracked in the video. "I laughed. I filmed it like it was entertainment. I was going to post it for views." He wiped his eyes. "I was wrong. I was part of the problem. That girl showed more courage than anyone in that lobby, including me. Especially me." He looked directly at the camera. "So if you ever see something like this happening, don't watch. Don't film. Don't laugh. Speak up. Because silence makes you complicit. I learned that the hard way. Don't be like me." The video went viral. 3 million views in 5 days. Comments flooded in. People sharing their own stories, their own shame, their own promises to do better. A national conversation started about bias, about assumptions, about the snap judgments we make based on appearance. Amara never saw the video. Malcolm and Keisha made sure of that. The girl had been through enough, but the message spread anyway. One small act of honesty. One confession. Millions of conversations. Change doesn't come from big moments alone. It comes from countless small ones. This was one of them. 6 years later. Amara Johnson, 18 years old, walks across a sun-drenched campus, Stanford University, first day of freshman orientation, tall, confident, wearing clothes that fit, shoes that aren't held together with glue, a far cry from the frightened 12-year-old in the marble bank lobby, but not entirely different. She still carries Mama Jo's letter, laminated now, protected, tucked safely in her wallet close to her heart. And on the shelf in her dorm room sit a pair of worn-out sneakers, cracked soles, faded fabric, carefully preserved in a clear display case. Her roommate, Jessica, notices them immediately. "Girl, why do you have those raggedy shoes on display?" "They look like they belong in a trash can." Amara picks up the case gently, runs her thumb over the glass. "My grandmother bought these for me when I was 12, $3 from Goodwill. She apologized because she couldn't afford better." She sets the case back on the shelf. "She saved $287,000 for my education, wore the same clothes for decades, rode the bus in the rain, ate the cheapest food, so I could have a future." She looks at Jessica. These shoes remind me that love isn't about what you have. It's about what you give. Jessica is quiet for a long moment. That's actually really beautiful. Yeah. Amara touches the case one more time. She was really beautiful. Malcolm Winters continued his work as a federal banking inspector, but he made changes too. He started speaking at banking conferences about bias and discrimination, not as lectures, but as case studies. He never mentioned Amara by name, but everyone in the industry knew the story. The bank manager who destroyed her own career in 45 minutes. The federal inspector who happened to be auditing the branch. The $250,000 account that proved assumptions wrong. Malcolm became known as the inspector who wouldn't tolerate discrimination in any form. Banks that knew he was coming cleaned up their acts fast. Dr. Keisha Johnson continued her work as a nurse practitioner, but she also joined Sterling Trust's Community Advisory Board. The woman who'd rushed from the hospital to save her niece became a voice for systematic change. She volunteered at schools, spoke to students about courage, about speaking up, about the cost of silence. I almost didn't make it in time, she told them. I almost let my niece face that alone. Don't wait until it's almost too late to do the right thing. James Patterson retired from Sterling Trust 3 years after the incident. But he didn't disappear. He became a school resource officer. Different kind of security. Protecting kids instead of removing them. Every time he stood up for a student, he thought of Amara. Every time he spoke against injustice, he honored the promise he'd made. He never stayed silent again. Not once. Diane Mitchell became more than just a witness. She joined advocacy groups focused on banking discrimination. She used her privilege, her white face, her designer clothes, her economic status, to open doors and demand change. I was a bystander once, she told community groups. I chose to stay quiet when a child needed help. It's a choice I regret every single day. Don't make my mistake. Your silence makes you complicit. Linda Hartwell, the woman who'd laughed in the lobby that day, never forgot the look on Amara's face, or the way her daughter Chelsea had whispered cruel comments. That night, Chelsea had asked, Mom, why was Amara wearing those old shoes if her grandmother had all that money? Linda hadn't had a good answer. The truth had settled in slowly, painfully. Amara's grandmother had loved her so much that she wore rags so her granddaughter could have a future. That wasn't poverty. That was sacrifice. That was love. Linda started volunteering at Lincoln Middle School, donated new shoes to kids who needed them through an anonymous fund. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. The Josephine Johnson Memorial Scholarship flourished. In 6 years, it awarded 28 full scholarships. Recipients became teachers, nurses, engineers, entrepreneurs, all of them carrying Mama Jo's legacy forward. All of them proving that potential isn't determined by your bank account or your shoes. One recipient, Maria Torres, became a financial literacy teacher in underserved communities. She taught families about banking rights, about how to challenge discrimination, about resources available to them. I got this scholarship because someone's grandmother worked 3 jobs for 35 years, Maria told her students. The least I can do is help other families understand the system that tried to keep her granddaughter out. Another recipient, David Kim, became a civil rights attorney. He took cases pro bono for families facing banking discrimination. This scholarship taught me that one person's sacrifice can change hundreds of lives, he said. I want to be part of that chain. The ripple effects continued. Wider, deeper, further than anyone could have imagined. Amara stood at her dorm window as the sun set over Stanford. Tomorrow, classes would start. Her future would begin. She pulled out Mama Jo's letter. Read it. One more time. The words she knew by heart. My beautiful Amara, never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know. Dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride, baby girl. Always. She had carried it through the worst day of her life, through years of growing up, through the journey that brought her here. Her phone buzzed. Uncle Malcolm. First day tomorrow. How are you feeling, champ? Amara smiled, typed back. Nervous, excited, ready. Another text. Your grandma would be so proud of you. I know. Amara looked at the worn-out shoes in their display case. I think about her every day. Malcolm's response came quickly. She's with you, Amara. Always will be. They texted for a few more minutes. Then Amara hung up. She had orientation to attend, people to meet, a future to build, a legacy to honor. She grabbed her backpack, brand new, expensive, a gift from Uncle Malcolm and Aunt Keisha. But on her feet, she wore something different. Not the worn-out shoes from that day, those were preserved in their case, but similar ones. Simple, practical, bought from a thrift store by choice, not necessity. A reminder, a promise, a connection to the woman who'd given everything. Amara Johnson walked out of her dorm room into her future, carrying her dignity with pride, just like Mama Jo taught her. 5 years after that, Amara graduated from Stanford with a degree in public policy. She was 23 years old, standing on stage to give the student commencement address. In the audience sat Uncle Malcolm and Aunt Keisha, James Patterson, who'd driven 12 hours to be there, Catherine Rodriguez and Patricia Edwards from Sterling Trust, Diane Mitchell, who'd become like an aunt, Maria Torres and David Kim, fellow scholarship recipients who'd become like siblings. And in Amara's hand, folded carefully in her pocket, was Mama Jo's letter. Always. 6 years ago, Amara began, her voice carrying across the outdoor amphitheater. I walked into a bank to access my grandmother's legacy. I was 12 years old, wearing worn-out shoes, carrying a letter from the woman who'd raised me. She paused. The crowd was silent. I was thrown out, called a thief, mocked, humiliated, because of how I looked, because of assumptions about who I was and what I deserved. She smiled, not bitter, not angry, just honest. But my grandmother taught me something that day, even though she was already gone. She taught me that dignity isn't given by others. It's carried within yourself. And no one, no matter how powerful, no matter how cruel, can take it from you unless you let them. Applause began. She raised her hand gently, asking them to wait. Today, I want to talk about 3 things: assumptions, courage, and legacy. She spoke for 12 minutes. About the danger of snap judgments, about the cost of silence, about the power of one person's sacrifice to change countless lives. My grandmother worked 3 jobs for 35 years so I could stand here today. But she also showed me that wealth isn't just money in a bank account. It's love made visible. It's sacrifice made meaningful. It's dignity carried with pride. She pulled out the letter, held it up. She wrote me this letter before she died. It says, "Dignity is not given, it is carried. Carry yours with pride." That's what I want to leave you with today. Not just as graduates, but as humans who will go out into a world that desperately needs people who see beyond appearances, who speak up when others stay silent, who choose courage over comfort. She looked across the crowd. Some of you will become bankers. Some will become teachers. Some will become engineers or artists or parents or entrepreneurs. Whatever you become, I'm asking you this. When you see someone being treated as less than human, which person will you be? She let the question hang. The one who laughs? The one who films it for entertainment? The one who stays silent to protect yourself? Or the one who speaks up, who stands up, who remembers that dignity is everyone's birthright, not a privilege earned by wealth or status or the right shoes? The crowd was completely silent now. My grandmother's name was Josephine Johnson. She was a custodian. She rode the bus in the rain. She fixed her shoes with duct tape. And she changed the world by raising me to know my worth regardless of what anyone else thought. Amara's voice grew stronger.
You don't need to be rich to make a difference. You don't need to be powerful to stand up for what's right. You just need to remember that every person you meet is carrying a story you don't know, fighting a battle you can't see, deserving of dignity you can choose to give or withhold. She held up the letter one more time. Choose to give it, every single time. That's how we change the world. One moment of courage at a time. One choice to speak up instead of stay silent. One decision to see the human being in front of you instead of the assumptions in your head. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back in her pocket. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Mama Joe, wherever you are. I carried it with pride, just like you taught me. The applause was deafening. In the audience, James Patterson wiped tears from his eyes. Catherine Rodriguez nodded slowly, thinking of all the changes still needed. Malcolm and Keisha held hands, bursting with pride. And somewhere, in whatever place holds the spirits of grandmothers who sacrifice everything for love, Josephine Johnson smiled. Her legacy wasn't just money in a bank account. It was a girl who learned that dignity cannot be given or taken, only carried. And Amara Johnson carried it like a torch, lighting the way for others to follow. The video of that speech went viral too. Not 3 million views, 30 million. People shared it with the caption, "This is what real wealth looks like." Comments flooded in. "I was that bank teller once. Never again." "I've stayed silent too many times. Not anymore." Teaching my kids about Josephine Johnson tonight. This is what sacrifice means. I'm a bank manager. Showed this to my entire staff. We're changing our policies. The story spread. The message multiplied. The ripples continued. And in dorm rooms and offices and living rooms across the country, people looked at their own worn-out shoes, their own struggles, their own moments of being judged. And they remembered, you are not your shoes, you are not your bank account, you are not other people's assumptions, you are your character, your choices, your dignity, and dignity is not given, it is carried. Carry yours with pride. Respect is not a reward for success. It's not earned by money, fancy clothes, or knowing the right people. It's the baseline of humanity, the minimum we owe each other. Amara Johnson didn't need a federal inspector uncle to deserve basic decency. No one does. But that day in the bank, she learned something important. Some people measure your worth by your shoes, others by your bank account. A few rare ones measure it by your character. Be one of the rare ones. And if you ever find yourself in a lobby watching someone be humiliated, ask yourself, which person do you want to be? The one who laughed? The one who filmed? The one who stayed silent? Or the one who spoke up? The choice is yours. It's always yours. Dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride, and help others carry theirs. That's how we change the world. One small act of courage at a time. If this story reminded you of something you've witnessed, or something you stayed silent about, share it. Not for us. For the next Amara who walks in somewhere alone and needs someone to speak. For the next person wearing worn-out shoes who deserves to be seen as human. For the grandmothers who sacrifice everything and deserve to be honored. For the world we want to build, where dignity isn't a privilege but a right. Where everyone, regardless of their shoes, their skin, their status, is treated with the respect they deserve. That world starts with you. What will you choose?